I pulled into the driveway the Tuesday evening and saw the kitchen light on. I thought nothing of it. My daughter's car was parked out front. That was normal. She visited on Tuesdays sometimes, said she liked to check in on me since her mother passed. I was grateful for that. I told myself I was lucky to have her. I was 63 years old and I had worked 31 years at sn-Rail before I took early retirement. My pension wasn't extravagant, but it was steady, about $4,200 a month after tax, plus the house was paid off. My son called me on hip money for quote. I didn't earn money. One morning she was making coffee and by noon she was gone. After that my daughter started coming around more. I told myself it was grief. Hers and mine both. Her name is Fiona. She's 41. She has her mother's eyes but not her mother's patience. That Tuesday I walked in through the side door and I heard something I hadn't heard in a long time inside that house. Crying. Not quiet crying. The kind that comes from somewhere deep, where a person has been holding it so long, it finally just breaks loose. My wife's sister, Evelyn, was sitting at the kitchen table with both hands flat on the wood, like she was trying to hold herself steady. Her face was turned away from me. Her shoulders were going up and down. Fiona was standing near the counter, arms crossed, and when she saw me come in, her expression changed. Not to relief, to something else. Something I didn't know how to name right away. What happened? I said. Evelyn, what's wrong? Evelyn looked up and tried to speak, but what came out wasn't words. Fiona said, she's just upset. She gets like this sometimes. I looked at my daughter. I looked at the way she was standing. Something in the room felt wrong, the way a floorboard feels wrong. Not until you step on it do you realize it's been rotting underneath. Give us a minute, I said to Fiona. Dad, please. She picked up her keys from the counter and walked to the living room. I sat down across from Evelyn and waited. That's something Lorraine taught me. When someone is crying like that, you don't ask again. You sit. You wait. You let them find their way back to words on their own. After a few minutes, Evelyn wiped her face with the back of her hand and said very quietly, I'm sorry, Howard. I didn't mean for you to see me like this. Don't apologize, I said. She looked at the table. Fiona asked me to sign something. I didn't say anything. She said it was to help with your finances. Some kind of consolidation. She said you'd asked her to handle it. I had not asked her to handle anything. Before I could speak, Evelyn shook her head. I told her I wouldn't sign without talking to you first. That's when she stopped. She raised her voice. She said I was interfering. She said I never understood how families work and that I was just a bitter old woman who had nobody. Evelyn pressed her lips together. She said Lorraine always thought I was too much. I sat very still. I know it isn't true, Evelyn said. Lorraine loved me. I know that, but it still, she stopped again. It still landed. That's what she couldn't finish saying. Because some things, even when you know they're wrong, they still land. I told Evelyn I was glad she didn't sign anything. I told her to sit as long as she needed. I made her a cup of tea. The orange because she always liked, and I went to find my daughter. Fiona was in the living room on her phone. She looked up when I came in and I could tell she was preparing something. An explanation. A version. She's being dramatic, Fiona said before I could open my mouth. I asked her a simple question and she blew it up into something. What document? I said. It's just a financial management form. It lets me help you with things. You're getting older, Dad. These things are complicated and I just want to make sure everything is taken care of. I didn't ask you to take care of my finances. I know, but... And I didn't ask you to have Evelyn sign anything. She set her phone down. It was a formality. You need a witness for certain things. It's not a big deal. Something about the way she said that, not a big deal, made me go quiet inside. The way a calm comes before you really understand what's happened. I said I was tired and that she should head home. She looked at me for a moment, like she was going to push further, and then she picked up her jacket and left. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark and I thought about the last 8 months. Fiona had started coming over more often after I got my first pension statement last spring. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. She'd helped me set up online banking, said it would be easier for me than going to the branch every month. She'd shown me how to set up automatic bill payments. I appreciated it. I thought about how 2 months ago she'd asked me to add her as a joint account holder on my checking account. Just so I can help if you ever need it. I had said I'd think about it. I got up at 2 in the morning. went to my desk in the spare room, and pulled up my TD bank account on the laptop. I stared at the screen for a long time. There were 3 transfers I didn't remember making, each one $800, over the past 6 weeks, all to an account I didn't recognize. The memo said shared expenses and household MGMT and MISC. I wrote down the dates. I wrote down the amounts, $2,400. I sat there in the dark of my spare room with the blue light of the laptop on my face, and I thought about my daughter. I thought about the way she had looked at me when I walked in, not worried, calculating. I didn't call her. I didn't say anything to anyone. The next morning I drove to my TD branch on Carling Avenue, and I spoke to an advisor named Marcus, young fellow, patient. He listened to the whole thing without interrupting. He pulled up the account history with me. He confirmed that those transfers had been initiated through the online banking portal, from my login credentials. Except I hadn't done them. He asked if I'd shared my login with anyone. I had, once. When Fiona had set up the automatic payments, I typed my password in front of her. I hadn't changed it since. Marcus walked me through how to change my credentials, how to set up two-factor authentication, and he flagged the 3 transactions for review. He told me that if I wanted to pursue it further, I could file a report with the police and also contact the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada. He said it quietly and without any judgment, the way a decent person delivers information they know is going to be hard to hear. I appreciated that. I drove home and I sat in my car in the driveway for a while before going inside. I want you to understand something. I am not a person who moves fast on things like this. I was raised to believe that family doesn't give up on family. My father used to say that the people who share your blood are the ones who will still be there when everything else falls away. I believed that for 63 years. I'm not ashamed of that. But I also knew, sitting in that driveway, that I had to be certain. I needed to see it for myself before I did anything I couldn't undo. I had a security camera system. I'd installed it 2 summers ago after there'd been a few break-ins in the neighborhood. 3 cameras, front door, side door, and the kitchen window that faces the backyard. I'd set it up with a cloud backup, which my neighbor Douglas had helped me configure. I hadn't looked at the footage in months, but it was all there. I went inside, made coffee, and sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop. I pulled up the footage from the past 3 weeks. The first thing I found was from a Wednesday afternoon, 12 days earlier. I had been at my prostate follow-up appointment at the Ottawa hospital that day, the one I'd mentioned to Fiona, because she'd asked when I'd be out of the house. I told her 2 hours minimum. I'd been gone about 2.5. I watched the side door open at 10:17 p.m. Fiona came in with her own key. She went straight to the spare room. I watched her sit down at my desk. She used the laptop. She was there for 11 minutes. When she left, she closed the door behind her carefully, the way you close a door when you don't want to make a sound. The second clip was from 3 weeks before that. I'd been at Douglas's place for dinner. Fiona had called ahead that afternoon, and I'd mentioned it offhand when she asked what I was up to. She was in the house for 9 minutes that time. Again, straight to the desk. I sat back in my chair. The coffee went cold. I'm not going to tell you I was surprised. I think somewhere, in the part of myself I hadn't wanted to listen to, I already knew. The way you know a thing before you're ready to say it out loud. What surprised me was the loneliness of it. Sitting in the kitchen where Lorraine and I had eaten breakfast for 27 years, watching footage of my daughter moving through the house while I wasn't there, using my things, taking what wasn't hers. That was the part that sat in my chest like a stone. Not the money. The premeditation. She had waited until I was gone. Every time. I called my brother-in-law, Patrick, Evelyn's husband, that afternoon. I asked if I could come by. He's a retired RCMP officer, 30 years on the force, and one of the most even-headed men I've ever known. I brought the laptop and the printout from the bank. Patrick looked at everything. He didn't say much while he was looking. When he was done, he said, "You need a lawyer before you do anything else, Howard. Before you talk to her. Before you confront her. You need to understand your position." He recommended a woman he trusted, a solicitor in Canada who handled financial matters. I called her that afternoon and got an appointment for Thursday morning. Her name was Margaret. No, I'll call her my lawyer, because that's what matters. She was thorough, and she spoke plainly. She told me that what I was describing, unauthorized access to an online banking account, and the transfer of funds without consent, was a criminal matter, not just a civil one. She advised me to file a report with Ottawa Police Service, and to formally revoke any access Fiona had to my accounts or personal information. She also recommended I contact a notary to review my existing will and any powers of attorney documents, given that Fiona was currently named in both. I did all of it, one step at a time. The police report was not dramatic. A constable came to the house, I showed him the bank records and the camera footage, and he took a statement. He was professional. He told me the investigation would take time and that I should maintain records of everything going forward. I changed my will. I updated the power of attorney to name Patrick instead. I changed all my passwords, my banking pins, my email. I put a verbal password on my accounts at both TD and at Sun Life, where my pension comes through, so that no one can make inquiries or changes without it. Then I called Fiona. I asked her to meet me at the house that Saturday. I didn't tell her what it was about. She asked if everything was okay. I said I just wanted to talk. She arrived in the early afternoon. She came in like she always did, through the side door, keys jangling, and said something about the traffic on the forge at 17. She sat down at the kitchen table and looked at me with that particular expression she'd had since she was a teenager. The one that means she's ready to handle whatever this is. I put the bank printout on the table in front of her. She looked at it. Her expression didn't change right away, which told me something. A person who is innocent looks confused. A person who is caught looks still. I know about the transfers, I said. I know about the 3 times you came into the house while I was out. I have it on camera. A long silence. Dad, I'm not asking for an explanation, I said. I want you to know that I've already spoken to a lawyer and to the police. I've changed everything. Your name has been removed from my will and from my power of attorney. She looked up then. You went to the police? Yes. Dad, it wasn't. I was going to tell you. I needed to cover something. It was temporary. I fully intended to. I know what you intended, I said quietly. She went through several versions in the next few minutes. It was temporary. It was a loan to herself. She was going to pay it back. She'd been under enormous financial pressure since her separation. She didn't think I'd notice. She didn't think it would hurt me. She'd been planning to complain. I let her finish. Then I said, your mother worked for 22 years as a school administrator. I worked 31 years on the railway. Everything in this house, everything in that account. Your mother and I built it together over a lifetime. It wasn't yours to take, and it wasn't yours to decide. I didn't need to know. She started crying, not to ask what Evelyn had cried. That was grief and hurt and humiliation. Fiona's tears were something else. I don't say that with cruelty. I say it because I've known her for 41 years and I know the difference. I told her that whether or not the police pursued charges was no longer in my hands. I told her I would not be providing her with a character reference or assistance of any kind if it came to that. I told her that the door of this house was not closed to her permanently, but that trust, once spent this way, does not come back on its own. It requires time and it requires proof. Not words. Proof. She left. She didn't slam the door. She pulled it shut quietly behind her. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time afterward. I looked at the chair across from me where Lorraine used to sit. I don't know what I was hoping to find there. Maybe just the feeling that someone who had known me my whole life was still somewhere close. Evelyn came over the next day. She brought butter tarts from the bakery on Richmond Road, the ones with the runny centers that Lorraine always loved. We sat at the same table and we didn't talk about Fiona for a while. We talked about Lorraine, about a camping trip to Algonquin Park from 30 years ago, where the canoe had tipped and Lorraine had laughed so hard she couldn't get back in. We talked about small things, good things. Before Evelyn left, she said, you did the right thing, Howard. She needs to face this. You letting it go wouldn't have helped her. I've thought about that a lot since then. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with the police matter. These things take time. What I do know is that I sleep now. Not perfectly, but I sleep. If you're watching this and something in it sounds familiar, maybe not the same details, but the same feeling. That feeling that something is wrong in your own home and you don't want to be right about it. I want to say something clearly. Your savings are yours. Your home is yours. Your dignity is yours. The people who love you don't need to take from you in secret. If you're being taken advantage of by someone close to you and you don't know where to start, contact the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre at 1-888-4MITE-50-888-49501. They will listen. They will not judge you. And if you need immediate help, call your local police non-emergency line or speak to someone at your bank in person. Silence doesn't protect the family. It only protects the person doing the harm. I keep thinking about the moment I sat in the driveway after coming home from the bank. The engine was off. The house looked exactly the same as it always had. And I just sat there. There's something nobody tells you about discovering that someone you raised has been stealing from you. It doesn't feel like anger at first. It feels like a slow unraveling, like reaching for something familiar and finding the fabric has been coming apart for a long time without you noticing. What happened with Fiona didn't start the day she first transferred money out of my account. I believe now that it started much earlier, in small choices she made over years. Choices to take a little more, to explain a little less, to decide on my behalf what I needed to know and what I didn't. That's the part that's hard to sit with. Not the $2,400. The pattern. I thought about what I could have done differently. I gave her my banking password because I trusted her. I mentioned my appointments because I had no reason not to. I told myself her extra visits were about grief, and maybe some of it was, but I also think I chose, more than once, to look away from things that didn't quite add up. Because the alternative, believing what I was starting to suspect, was too painful to hold. That's not weakness. That's love. But love without clear eyes can become something a dishonest person walks right through. What I've come to understand is that the choices we make, especially the quiet ones, tend to come back around. Fiona made choices that compounded over months into something she couldn't explain away. And I made a choice. The morning I drove to Carling Avenue and sat down with that bank advisor to stop protecting the version of my daughter I wished was true and start dealing with the one who actually was. That took something. I won't pretend it didn't. There's a kind of courage that doesn't look like courage from the outside. It looks like a 63-year-old man driving to a bank branch and asking quiet questions. It looks like pulling up camera footage alone at 2 in the morning. It looks like making a phone call you've been dreading. Evelyn had it too. She said no to signing a document she didn't understand, even when my daughter tried to shame her for it. That kind of steadiness, knowing what you stand for when someone is pushing hard against it, that's something you build over a lifetime. You can't fake it in a crisis. Either it's there or it isn't. And Patrick, he didn't tell me what to feel. He didn't rush me. He looked at the evidence and said, get a lawyer first. Think before you act. That kind of clear-headed counsel, the ability to set emotion aside long enough to see what actually needs to happen. I needed that. I wouldn't have moved as carefully without it. I'm not going to tell you I've figured out how this ends with my daughter. I don't know yet. What I do know is that I didn't collapse under it, and I didn't ignore it either. I faced it with as much steadiness as I could manage, one step at a time. If you're in a situation like this, that's all I'd ask of you. Not to be fearless, not to have all the answers, just enough honesty to look at what's in front of you, enough wisdom to ask for help when you need it, and enough backbone to take the next right step, even when it costs you something. That's the only way through anything that matters.